My name is Carla. I'm 28 years old, and I was just a few months away from marrying the man I thought was the love of my life, Richard. It was a 4-year relationship, full of ups and downs, but I always believed our love was strong enough to overcome anything. Then, one day, everything changed. It was a Friday like any other. I was at work, buried in reports and deadlines, when I received an anonymous message on my phone. "Your fiancé is cheating on you," it said. My heart nearly stopped. I stared at the screen for a few minutes, trying to process those words. Could it be some kind of cruel joke? I spent the rest of the day trying to ignore the message, but it kept replaying in my mind. When I got home, Richard was there, smiling as always. He had prepared a special dinner for us, and I tried to act normal. But my mind was a whirlwind of doubts and suspicions. After dinner, Richard went to take a shower, and I seized the opportunity to grab his phone. My hands trembled as I entered the password he always used. As soon as I unlocked the phone, I went straight to the messages, and there it was. Intimate conversations with another woman, photos, videos. My world collapsed in that instant. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and humiliation. How could he do this to me? I began to dig deeper and discovered he was using my money to fund his dates with this other woman. I felt betrayed in every possible way. I decided not to confront him at that moment. I needed to think of something better, something that would make him feel the same pain I was feeling. I spent that night wide awake, planning my revenge. I'm not a vindictive person by nature, but this had crossed the line. The next morning, Richard left early for a meeting, and I started putting my plan into action. The following days were a test of endurance for me. Pretending everything was normal while my heart was in pieces was not easy. Richard continued his affairs, unaware that I knew everything. I could only think of one thing: revenge. I started paying closer attention to his movements. I found out he was meeting this woman, named Marina, at an expensive hotel downtown. Using my money, of course. This only fueled my anger and determination to do something memorable. I talked to some friends about the situation without going into too much detail. They supported me, but were also worried about my sanity. One of them, Julia, gave me an idea that became the centerpiece of my plan. "Why don't you get revenge on him at the wedding?" she suggested. It sounded so cruel and perfect at the same time. I decided to follow Julia's advice. I meticulously planned every detail. I asked Richard's brother, Philip, who I had always had a good relationship with, for help. I told him about the affairs and the misuse of my money. Philip was shocked and, to my surprise, agreed to help me. In fact, he was as furious as I was, as he had always had problems with Richard and his arrogance. Philip and I began meeting in secret to plan everything. He was the key to getting the necessary evidence. He gained access to the hotel's security cameras and sent me recordings of Richard's meetings with Marina. I became more determined to go through with the plan. Finally, the wedding day arrived. I was a mix of nervousness and excitement. I had to stay calm so no one would suspect what was about to happen. The venue was beautifully decorated, full of flowers and twinkling lights. It looked like the perfect setting for a fairy tale, but I knew the ending would be very different. As I was getting ready in the room, my mother came in and noticed my tension. "Is everything okay, dear?" she asked. I forced a smile and replied, "Yes, Mum, just a bit nervous." She gave me a tight hug and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. When it was time for the ceremony, I walked down the aisle with a smile on my face, but my heart was racing. I saw Richard waiting at the altar with that smile that used to melt me, but now only caused me disgust. Around us, friends and family watched emotionally, unaware of what was about to happen. During the ceremony, I looked at Philip, who was in the front row. He gave a slight nod, confirming everything was ready. When it came time for the vows, I held Richard's hands and looked deeply into his eyes. Richard, I promise to love and respect you for our entire life. And that's why I want to start our life together with total transparency. With that, I signaled to the sound technician, who started showing the photos and videos Philip and I had prepared on the screen. The reaction was immediate. People were shocked, some screamed, others started whispering. Richard turned pale and tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away. These are the proofs that Richard cheated on me and used my money for his dates with another woman. I found out everything and decided that today was the perfect day to expose the truth. Richard, you thought you would get away with it, but here we are. I hope you feel the same humiliation I felt. As the room descended into chaos with murmurs and incredulous looks, I felt a strange mix of relief and adrenaline. Richard tried to speak, but his voice faltered. He was completely stunned, and it gave me a sense of power I had never experienced before. Then I turned to Philip, who was already standing to accompany me. "Let's go, Philip," I said. "We have a wedding to end." He smiled and took my hand. We walked out under the astonished gazes of the guests. We went to the hall's bathroom, where Philip pulled me into a hug. "You were incredible," he said. "I never imagined you would have the courage to do that." I smiled, but it was clear that there was still a part of the plan that needed to be completed. I looked at Philip and he immediately understood. "Are you sure?" he asked, with a serious look. "Yes," I replied. "This is something I need to do to close this chapter once and for all." He nodded and kissed me. That kiss was intense, full of contained emotions and channeled anger. That moment was liberating. I felt avenged in every possible way. It wasn't just about betraying Richard, but about reclaiming my power and dignity. Philip was incredible, making me feel desired and in control. That was exactly what I needed. When we left the bathroom, the hall was in absolute frenzy. Some people were still shocked. Others were trying to console Richard, who was now sitting in a chair with his head in his hands. I approached him, and he raised his eyes, full of tears and anger. "How could you do this to me?" he shouted. "I loved you." I laughed, a bitter laugh full of sarcasm. "Love? You call this love? Cheating and using my money for your escapades? No, Richard, that's not love. And you deserved every second of this." I turned to the audience, where some friends and family still looked incredulous. "I'm sorry you had to see this, but I needed everyone to know the truth. I deserve something better, and that's what I'm going to seek from now on." With those words, I left the hall with Philip by my side. The feeling of freedom was overwhelming. I had finally shed that weight, and now it was time to start over. We got into the car, and as we drove through the city, Philip held my hand. "Where are we going now?" he asked. I looked at him with a determined smile. "Wherever we want, the world is ours." He smiled back, and for the first time in a long time, I felt in control of my destiny. The days following the wedding were intense. The news of what happened spread quickly, and I received numerous messages and calls. Some people supported me, while others condemned me. I knew my decision would be controversial, but I was ready to face the consequences. I decided to take some time for myself and spent a week at my family's beach house. I needed a quiet place to reflect on everything that had happened and plan my next steps. Philip came with me, and he was a great support throughout the process. One night, while we were on the porch, he asked, "Carla, what are you going to do now?" I looked at the sea, feeling the fresh breeze on my face, and replied, "I'm not sure exactly, but I know I want to start over. I want to find something that makes me happy, something that's just mine." Philip smiled and held my hand. "You're an incredible woman, Carla. You deserve all the happiness in the world, and I'll be here to support you in any decision you make." Those words touched me deeply, and I felt immense gratitude for having him by my side. When we returned to the city, I began restructuring my life. First, I sought a lawyer to resolve the financial issue with Richard. I wanted to ensure he no longer had access to my money. The process was long and exhausting, but in the end, I regained control of my finances. I also decided to change jobs. I needed a new environment, something that didn't remind me of Richard and our past together. I found a position at a smaller company with a welcoming atmosphere and incredible people. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. Philip and I started seeing each other more frequently. He was a constant and positive presence in my life, and gradually, we built something more solid. It wasn't easy to trust again, but he showed me that there was still kindness and honesty in people. One day, while we were together, he said, "Carla, have you ever thought about going to therapy? It could help you process everything that happened and move forward." I had never considered it, but his suggestion made sense. I scheduled an appointment with a therapist recommended by a friend, and it was an important step in my healing journey. Therapy helped me understand many things about myself and my choices. I was able to process the pain and betrayal of Richard in a healthier way. I learned to forgive myself for trusting him and to accept that I had no control over his actions. Slowly, I began to feel lighter and freer. My therapist, Dr. Beatrice, was incredible. She helped me see that I was a strong and resilient person, capable of overcoming any adversity. Her words gave me the strength to keep fighting for my dreams. In the meantime, Philip and I decided to make our relationship official. It was something that was naturally happening, but we wanted to do things correctly and transparently. He was a pillar of strength and love throughout this process, and I felt increasingly secure with him. Our relationship became more serious and committed. Philip supported me in all important decisions and helped me rebuild my confidence and self-esteem. He showed me that true love is based on respect, honesty, and mutual support. We started making plans for the future, and one of those plans included traveling together. We wanted to explore new places and create amazing memories. Our first trip was to Italy, a dream I had always had. It was a wonderful and strengthening experience for both of us. Walking through the streets of Rome, visiting museums, and savouring the local cuisine, I realised how much my life had changed in such a short time. I was a different person, stronger and more aware of my worth. And Philip was there, by my side, sharing these special moments. Life gradually fell into place, and I felt increasingly happy and fulfilled. I decided to invest in an old hobby, photography. I had always loved capturing special moments, and now I wanted to make it an important part of my life. Philip encouraged me to follow this dream. I bought a professional camera and started taking photography courses. Gradually, I built my portfolio and started receiving invitations for freelance work. It was gratifying to feel that I was building something with my own hands. On one of our photography outings, Philip surprised me with a question. "Carla, would you like to marry me?" I was speechless for a moment, and he continued, "I know you've been through a lot, and I don't want to rush anything, but I love you and want to spend the rest of my life with you." Tears began to roll down my face. I knew it was the right decision. "Yes, Philip, I want to marry you." We hugged and celebrated that moment, knowing we were starting a new chapter together. The preparations for the wedding were different this time. There was no rush or anxiety. We wanted something intimate and meaningful, just with the closest people. We chose a small chapel in the countryside and planned every detail together. While organising everything, I had the chance to reflect on my journey. It was impressive how things had changed in such a short time. From a betrayed and humiliated woman, I had transformed into someone strong and resilient, ready to start a new life alongside a man who truly loved and respected me. The wedding day arrived, and I felt calmer and happier than I ever imagined possible. The ceremony was beautiful and emotional, with sincere and loving vows. Philip and I were surrounded by friends and family who supported us every step of the way. After the wedding, we decided to have a different honeymoon. Instead of an exotic destination, we chose a small town in the mountains where we could relax and enjoy each other's company. It was the perfect choice. We spent days walking in nature, cooking together, and savouring every moment. One night while we were sitting on the porch, Philip held my hand and said, "Carla, I've never felt so happy in my life. Thank you for giving me the chance to love you and make you happy." I smiled and replied, "I'm the one who should thank you, Philip. You brought light into my life when I needed it the most." That moment was magical. I knew we were on the right path, building a life together based on love, respect, and partnership. We returned home and started our new life as husband and wife. We decided we wanted to buy a house together, a place we could call our own. We found a charming house in a quiet neighbourhood with a beautiful garden and enough space to start a family. As we decorated our new home, I felt that I had finally found my place. Every detail reflected our love and shared taste. Philip and I worked together on every project, and it only strengthened our bond. Over time, my career as a photographer began to take off. I received invitations for exhibitions, and my work started getting recognised. Philip was always by my side, supporting me and celebrating each achievement. Life continued to surprise us in wonderful ways. A few years later, I discovered I was pregnant. The news filled us with joy and anticipation. Philip and I were ready to start this new adventure together. Pregnancy was a special period in our lives. Philip was always present, taking care of me and participating in every moment. Our friends and family were also excited about the arrival of the new family member. When our son was born, we felt our world was complete. The joy of holding that little being in my arms was indescribable. Philip was an incredible father, and seeing his interaction with our son only increased my love for him. Now, looking back, I see how much I've grown and learned from all the experiences I went through. Richard's betrayal was a hard blow, but it was also the catalyst for my transformation. I found true love in Philip and built a life full of meaning and happiness. My journey was filled with ups and downs, but each challenge made me stronger and made me appreciate the good things even more. Today, I'm grateful for everything I've experienced because it brought me to where I am now. I'm a strong, resilient, and happy woman, and I know I can face anything life throws my way. And so, I continue living my life alongside Philip and our son, with a heart full of love and hope. Every day is a new opportunity to grow and be happy, and I'm determined to make the most of every moment.